Thank you so much for being back with us on another episode of Winning the Moment. Today is such a good one. I've got Devin Burke, and he is one of the top 25 coaches in the country for health, and he is a sleep specialist. So if you want to learn how to get better sleep, or if you're struggling with sleep, or you just want to learn some cool biohacks, this is absolutely the episode for you. I can't wait for you to get it. I absolutely loved it. Love the science behind it. We all sleep every single day, so why not do it the best that you possibly can? It's a great one. Be sure to stay tuned to the end, and most importantly, enjoy the episode. Wherever you are and however you're listening, thank you so much for being back with us on another episode of Winning the Moment. Today, I am super excited. I have Devin Burke here, who is the founder of the Sleep Academy, and I have been fascinated with sleep probably within like the last 3 to 4 years, and I've done a lot of my own research, and I try some things, and so I can't wait to get it directly from the source. So Devin, thank you so much for being here.
Oh man, I'm excited to be here and to talk sleep, but hopefully not put the listeners to sleep.
So I'm honestly just so jazzed because I think, I don't know if you would consider this biohacking or not, but I love things that can allow us to optimize our own selves and to be better versions of ourselves. And sleep is something that we all do no matter what. We can probably do it better. And so it's one of those things where it's like, if you're already, it's kind of like breath exercises to me, where it's like, you're already breathing. Why not figure out how to do it the most effective way that you can? And so I'm curious, how did you get into the sleep space? What did that look like?
Yeah, I was working about 7 years ago. I had a high performance coaching practice. So I was working with a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of business owners, a lot of executives. As you can imagine, a lot of stress comes along with those roles. Most of them were not sleeping. And one particular person was like, listen, this is affecting me in a massive way. I don't want to be on sleeping pills. What do you know about sleep? And I had studied a lot of different things, a lot of different mindset strategies and coaching strategies and physiologies and all types of things. But I never really looked at sleep, only because I'm an amazing sleeper. And I never realized what a painful problem it is for people, or that it's the foundation of health. And so long story short, I went down this rabbit hole looking at sleep science, looking at what was available for people that are not sleeping well. And I was like, oh my God, I never realized how important sleep is to literally every aspect of our life, and how detrimental it is to our health and our life when we're not getting enough of it. And so that kind of just was the catalyst to dive me deep into sleep. And then about a year later, I founded Sleep Science Academy and sort of made the pivot into the sleep space. And we've been helping people sleep across America for the last 7 years.
It's interesting that you say that, because I also have never had a problem with sleeping, right? Like I could always fall asleep and I slept good and I felt rested. I always felt like I didn't need a lot of sleep. And so when I was younger, I was like, oh yeah, as long as I get like 5 hours, I'm good. And then I read the book, Why We Sleep.
Yes.
And I was like, and that blew my mind, and it really transformed how I felt about sleeping, because I had always felt like I could function just fine with less. And then I read those studies, and it was like, if it was like less than 7 hours, it was like the same cognitive decline as like drinking while driving. And I couldn't believe it, and you think like, oh, I'm different, but we're not, we're all humans. And so that's really what started my journey of like, wow, this is way more important than I realized.
Yeah, Matt Walker did an amazing job in his book, Why We Sleep, on really presenting the facts around why sleep is so critical to our mind, our body, our health. I think he missed the mark on maybe telling people how to actually get better sleep in that book, but he did enough. He actually made a lot of people insomniacs, because they started to worry about their sleep because they weren't getting enough of it. But yeah, I mean, I think now there's a huge cultural shift. The world is understanding the importance of sleep. People like Matt Walker that are, promoting sleep and bringing these studies to light, I think really has opened people's eyes to how important sleep actually is and how important it is to prioritize it. Before you hear people say, oh, you snooze, you lose. Sleep culturally is seen as sort of this lazy habit.
Yeah.
But now what's amazing is a lot of athletes are talking about sleep. A lot of, entrepreneurs are talking about sleep and how important it is and what they do to prioritize and protect it. So I think the conversation around sleep is shifting slowly, but there's still a lot of people that just totally don't focus on it, don't prioritize it, don't understand it. And unfortunately they're suffering because they're not getting enough of it.
Well, that kind of is true for me. Like I felt like the less I slept was almost a badge of honor. Of like, oh no, I can stay up late and have fun, but I can still get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and do my stuff. And it was like it felt good that I could operate with less.
Yeah, it's a hustle. And here's the thing, it's like the hustle culture.
Yeah,
It's a huge thing, and it is, and I think there still is. It's still ingrained in the culture. Again, the conversation is shifting, but a lot of people still kind of have that mindset of like, I can get away with 5 hours of sleep. I'm waking up early. I'm hitting the gym. I'm, doing the things, and it's kind of like this badge of honor, like you said. But in reality, I mean, you can get away with that for a little bit, but it catches up with you. And the tricky thing about sleep is it's like you don't really realize that you're functioning at a lower level until you get enough of it and enough quality sleep to realize, oh my God, like I had no idea that I was actually really tired and I was actually really fatigued. And, my mental performance and my emotional stability and all those things were actually being affected. Most people don't really understand it until they're getting enough of it or enough quality sleep to really see, oh my gosh. I'm curious, was that your experience when you started to prioritize it?
it definitely made a difference for sure. Like I realized that my ability to one feel good and think quicker and faster improved once I like started trying to go to sleep at the same time and getting up at the same time and really now I feel like I do need 8 hours. Like I'm consciously aware of what time it is and what my morning looks like because I prioritize getting 8 hours of sleep. Like that's an important number for me. And so I couldn't go back to less sleep. And what's interesting is I've not really ever thought about it until this conversation, but I don't know if it's because I've gotten older or it's because I finally realized what the good sleep did to me versus how old I am. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, and the truth is, Cody, our sleep architecture does change as we age. So the amount of sleep, the quality of our sleep is going to depend on a lot of factors. One is age, another is stress. And so it could be a little bit of both, most
Yeah.
likely.
Well, and I feel like the people that I know that struggle with it, it's like bookends of struggle. It's the like their mind running as you're trying to sleep. Like once all the noise is finally gone and you're left with your thoughts and then that perpetual cycle of like worry. And then the other end is maybe you wake up at 5 or 6 and you're not yet supposed to be up, but then you get that anxiety and then you can't finish your sleep cycle, right? And so I'm curious like what you found where most people struggle.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different types of sleep struggles, right? So insomnia, there's a lot of different classifications of like insomnia. So people that have trouble falling asleep, we call that onset insomnia. People that have trouble staying asleep, we call that maintenance insomnia. And then there's different classifications for, it could be acute or it could be chronic. And so depending on how much it's affecting your life and for how long it's been going on. A lot of people have insomnia and they don't even realize they have it. They're just like, they think that they're just like bad sleepers or they've never really put a label on it. But there's so many people that have the issue of waking up in the middle of the night, the mind starts to go, and then they're not able to sleep. They're not able to get back to sleep. And that can happen, 4 in the morning, that can happen at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, can happen at 5 in the morning. And it becomes a pattern for people. But there's 100%, I would say the major root cause of most people's sleep struggles is anxiety and stress. It's really, taking our days into our nights and not really understanding how the mind works or not understanding how our emotions work, which lead to certain behaviors. And then the tricky thing is a lot of the behaviors that people do to try to solve their sleep issues logically make sense, but are the very things that keep people stuck.
Interesting. Elaborate on that. So, like, what's an illogical example?
Yeah. So, most people spend too much time in bed. So, for instance, one of the best
Okay.
strategies for people that are listening to this, if you wake up in the middle of the night, and this is a consistent thing, you wake up at a certain time, you look at the clock, which was one of the things you don't want to do because that creates like this clock in our head of, oh my God, I only have 2 more hours and then I have to get up. But you don't want to stay in bed if you're not sleeping, because what that does is it anchors the mind and body to the bed equals thinking, racing mind, anxiety, worrying.
Interesting.
So you want to actually get out of bed, go to a place, have a plan, do something relaxing, not to get back to sleep, just to do it. And then once you feel sleepy, then get back in bed. It doesn't make sense because a lot of people are like, well, if I'm not in bed, then how am I even going to get sleep? But what that does is it helps break that pattern. And that is like a huge, like literally, I've helped thousands of people that have been, on for decades, sleeping medications. They've tried therapy, they've tried acupuncture and functional doctors and all these things. And this one thing is a massive difference. I mean, there's a lot of other things, but this one thing of actually not staying in bed if you're not sleeping makes such a difference for people.
What about, so that's like if you wake up, but what about your pre-sleep and your after sleep? Like, would you say don't watch TV in your bed then, like before nighttime? And then like I'll have some on the weekends, I'll have coffee in bed.
Yeah.
And so I should probably stop doing that.
Well, here's the truth. It depends on, if you have insomnia, there's certain things that you want to do and not do. If you're just somebody who is looking to optimize your sleep, biohack your sleep, certain things, there's different recommendations for people that are looking to optimize and biohack, or people that truly have like a real problem with their sleep. Not a problem, but it's a real issue. Obstacle. Yeah. So ideally the only things that we do in bed are make love to our bed partner and sleep.
I was wondering if you were going to say you have to have like a separate bed for that one, Okay.
Yeah.
That's great. I like that. So, you talked about, we talked about why we sleep, and that really was where my journey started with sleep. And that's why I was so excited for today. But you're right. And I never thought about how we didn't say like, okay, so now here's the steps to make sure you're getting it, besides like going to bed and waking up at the same time. That's probably the one takeaway. So I'm curious, like, what are the things that you do universally, right? So not with a particular insomnia obstacle, but universally truth items or steps that you should take to get better sleep. What are the keys for you?
Yeah, there's a lot to it. So literally a great night of sleep starts as soon as you wake up. As soon as you wake up, the first thing you want to do is you actually want to get outside if you can, because the thing that controls sleep is temperature and light. And so most of us, I actually just read a statistic, 93% of people spend most of their time indoors. Like,
yeah, that's true.
It's insane. So, the circadian rhythm, that's our biological clock, actually gets set by the rising and the setting of the sun. So one of the best things you could do is literally wake up and just go outside and take a walk. That's part of my morning routine. I wake up, I just go outside, put my feet on the ground and just get some sun. It's amazing what a difference that can make. And if you can create the opportunity also to watch the sun set or be outside when the sun is setting, that also makes a massive difference.
Interesting. And when you go outside and you put your feet on the ground, are you barefoot, or in your opinion, does it make a difference?
Yeah, it does. I mean, there's real science around, they call it earthing or grounding. But again, most of us are disconnected from the biorhythm of the earth. And so it does make a difference. And a lot of times people are like, man, that's like some hippie pseudoscience, but it's actually not. Like if you actually dive into the research of, the earth puts off a certain frequency, and we're disconnected from that frequency just because we wear shoes most of the time, or we're walking on concrete. So ideally, if you can get barefoot and put your feet on the ground and just kind of even just for 10 minutes, that's all you outside, find a patch of grass, get some light on your skin, get some light in your eyes, put your feet on the ground. It makes a massive, massive difference to help set the internal clock, to help you keep a healthy circadian rhythm.
Okay, I love that. So Gary Bareka, that's like his advice too. Like he's big on this minute you wake up, outside, sun in your face. And then I like the thing about the sunset too. So just letting your body know the day is started and ended. Yeah.
And the thing is, unfortunately for a lot of us, we're behind screens most of the day.
Yeah.
And, blue light, it's not ideal. It's for sure, I think blue light, there's a factor with the blue light and the invention of the light bulb and all these things are amazing. But unfortunately, it messes with the melatonin production. Melatonin is a sleep hormone. So there are things you can do, like wear like blue light blocking glasses. Um, you can get blue light blocking filters on your devices, but it's not just the blue light. It's also the stimulation that comes from the devices.
Yeah.
Yeah, specifically social media sites. A lot of people, go at night or first thing in the morning, they're scrolling through their feed, Instagram or Facebook or TikTok or whatever it is, and it just creates this underlying anxiety. And it's just not a good thing to start your day with or end your day with. It's one of the worst things. It's actually one of the worst ways
So
to start a day or end a day.
do you have a time before and after where you feel like, okay, you've reached the level that you can now divulge and it's not going to impact your sleep?
Yeah, I would say, at least an hour, no device, at least an hour before bed. Now, for most people, that's not realistic for a lot of people. So, but it makes it for those people that actually listen to this and then try it on for like 2 weeks or even just a week, setting alarm like, hey, I'm not going to touch my phone, or I'm only going to watch a show, up until this time, and then I'm going to turn off the TV and go read a book or stretch or meditate or do something that's more relaxing, that's not involved with technology. That makes a massive, massive difference in the quality and depth of your sleep
And
if it's practiced consistently.
would you say I'd challenge and say not realistic because it's like who can't do that, but also is a TV as impactful as a device like a phone? If I'm watching a show at night, is that impacting me in the same capacity as if I'm like scrolling on Twitter?
That's an interesting question. I mean, both put off blue light, but I think depending on the content you're consuming, that also makes a huge difference.
Okay.
So if you're watching like a horror film, or if you're watching the news, if you're watching something that's going to activate your sympathetic nervous system, your
That
stress
makes sense.
response, that's not going to be ideal. If you're watching something funny, something relaxing, something that puts you in a good mood, totally different experience. But any device is going to put off blue light, and blue light science shows that it kind of turns off the melatonin faucet, and we want that faucet on to be able to get into the deeper stages of sleep.
What an important thing for your kids too, because it's so easy to like let the kids relax and watch a show before bed, but then we're stopping their melatonin from producing,
Yeah, and that's a big thing. A lot of parents actually give their kids melatonin. A lot of people
I was
take
going to ask you
melatonin.
about that. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, my thoughts, our body naturally produces it. So why not support your body to produce the amount that it needs versus taking it from a supplement? It's a hormone. And it actually used to be, I'm not sure if it's still regulated in the EU, but you actually needed a prescription to get your hands on melatonin. They might have changed that at this point. But even in Matt Walker's book, he talks about most of the melatonin supplements, they're the accuracy of actually the dose, even in the same company, is drastically different. So you really don't know how much you're taking. But it's like, would you give your kids testosterone? I mean,
Yeah.
probably not, right? I mean, unless they had, medical issue that they needed it. But it's one of those things. I'm really big on how do we get back to just supporting our bodies to do what they know how to do. The body knows how to produce melatonin. There's just things in our modern age that we do that kind of inhibits that natural production from happening.
Well, yeah, it's I'm a big believer in that too. Like if your body creates something, if it creates an ailment, it can fix it if you just do the right things for your body. So anything that you're taking, you're stopping yourself from getting your life right to have your body do it the way that it's intended to, right? So that was one that I wanted to make sure I got into. Now I've got, well, actually, no, let me not get ahead of you, because you kind of started first step, your best night of sleep starts in the morning. So then what's next? Like, what's the next piece of advice?
Yeah. Now this is a big one. And most people unconsciously we call it nexting at Sleep Science Academy, go from the next thing to the next thing to the next thing to the next thing. There's no rest. So sleep is a result of rest. And not only do we have a sleep deficiency for most people, but we have a rest deficiency. Most of us today are, if there's a moment in our day, the first thing we do is grab our phones and check our email, check our text messages, go on social media. There's no mental rest throughout our activities. So whether that's, transitioning from a meeting to another meeting, or from, lunch back into your day, whatever it is, there's all these transitions that happen. And if we don't consciously take moments between the next thing that we do, what happens is it builds tension and pressure in the body. And it's like, I like to give the analogy, it's like we're blowing up a balloon. There's tension and pressure. That balloon is blowing up all day long as we are focusing on tasks, as we're dealing with challenges throughout the day. And if we don't let some air out of that balloon, there's so much at the end of the day that it takes so much to deflate the balloon for then sleep to happen that it takes a lot. You actually have to do a lot of things to calm your body down enough in order for sleep to happen. So what we coach people to do is take what we call them energy breaks. And it could be literally 5 minutes where you're not touching your device. You're literally just checking in with yourself, how you're feeling. You're checking in with your breathing. You're checking in with your surroundings. You're becoming present to just what's here now. And you do that throughout the day as you go throughout your day. So as you transition to the next thing, there's a moment where you let a little bit of air out of that balloon so that tension and pressure doesn't build up so much.
Man, that's really fascinating because like on my lunch break, when I'm like eating, I will read Twitter. Right. And so I didn't realize now that you say that, my brain really never stops from the second I get up all the way through. I'm constantly engaged in some capacity.
Mental, yeah, and so that is just one form of rest. That would be mental rest. But there's physical rest, there's spiritual rest, creative rest. There's actually an amazing book called Sacred Rest, and a doctor wrote it, and she kind of lays out this framework for the different types of rest. All types of rest are important, but mental rest, the biggest deficit that most people have in this modern day is mental rest. And if we're not taking some time to have that mental rest, there are consequences. And one of the consequences are for a lot of people is a racing mind at night. That's like one of the most common challenges that most people have. And it's a result of a deficiency in mental rest throughout the day.
Because basically they've given their mind the first time to think. And so now it's got to get all those thoughts that have racked up throughout the day a chance to get out.
Exactly. And then you have all these browsers open. You have to try to close them out. And it's like your brain is just, it's like that thing that spins on your Mac when you have too many browsers.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what's happening to most people's brains at the end of the day, because that's the first chance that they actually give themselves to do some self-reflection or to check in with, themselves. And so if you can learn how to check in with yourself or do these little energy breaks in between the next thing, it makes a massive difference in not only how you feel and perform throughout your day, but also you don't have to, it's not so much effort that you have to put into then creating the body to remind the body that, hey, it's time for sleep.
Man, I really love that. Okay, so then what's next? So you kind of talked about the morning and the day. So what does a nighttime routine look like to optimize sleep?
Yeah, so one of my mentors, he has this thing called 3-2-1 sleep, and I've adopted it. And so it's easy to remember, but 3 hours before you want to be asleep, you want to really stop eating. And the reason for that is the first 2 cycles of sleep, and a sleep cycle is about 90 minutes for most people. That's when we're getting into the deepest stages of sleep, the delta sleep. And we don't want our bodies digesting food when the body is in these deeper stages, cleaning out cancer cells. And the lymph system is the lymph system for the brain, where, it's flushing out the plaque that builds up in our brain. Like amazing things happen in this deep stage of sleep. But if our bodies are trying to digest a giant hamburger that we just ate, 30 minutes before we went to sleep, it's really hard for the body to actually get into these deeper stages of sleep. So for most people, 3 hours between their last meal and when they want to go in bed is enough. For some people, they can get away with a little bit less. Some people need a little bit more, depending on how fast your metabolism is. But that's 3 hours, right? So 3 hours before bed, no food. Then 2 hours before bed, you want to not work. A lot of times, especially after COVID, when people are working from home with these remote jobs, people just work literally up until the time that they need to go to sleep.
Yeah.
There's no boundaries. There's no clear ending to the workday. It's so important to have a transition from your work to your life. And for some people, that can be challenging depending on your job and the nature of that. But for most people, drawing that strong boundary of, hey, I'm not going to work. I'm not even going to think about work. I'm just for 2 hours between now and the time I want to be asleep, I'm just going to let my mind focus on other things. And then 1 hour before bed, that's when you want to start like a ritual or a routine that can help calm and relax your body. And we can talk about what that could look like.
Yeah. So one thing I thought about, I when I was younger, I did the work thing all the time, right? Like that, another badge of honor. Like, oh, I'll work all night long.
Yep.
I don't do that anymore. So it's like that one check. 5 o'clock, it's like I'm done working. But what I found is interesting is like if I play pickleball, because I'll play at nighttime that my kids are asleep, it's easier. And then I'm like all jacked up when I get home. Like if I go play pickleball at 8 and we finish at 10 o'clock, I've like got too much going on to like get asleep at a decent hour, So I probably need to be thinking about starting that earlier so I can give myself that break before I'm trying to hit my sleep time.
That'd be ideal. I mean, again, none of this, it's really what you do consistently that makes the biggest difference. So, if that's like once a week thing, but if you're really looking to fine tune and optimize, in a perfect world, that wouldn't be the case, right? You'd be playing pickleball maybe a little bit earlier so that you're not all revved up and it takes so much time to bring it down.
Okay. So let's talk about, tips for that last hour, like how to maximize that 1 hour routine.
Yeah. And this is where it really comes up to like the person, what your interests are. And so a lot of people, I'll just share what I do. So what I do is I make a cup of tea and I usually read a book. Like that's kind of like what I do. It works for me. It calms me down. But anything that's going to get you into your parasympathetic nervous system, meaning it's going to sort of get you into that rest and digest, is going to be good. So this could be stretching, this could be meditating, making love to your bed partner, although that might not bring you down. For some people, that brings you up. It could be, a puzzle. It could be playing an instrument. It could be, maybe it is watching a show, but watching a show that's light and funny, not the news or some horror film or action film. It could be a lot of things. And that's kind of up for people to kind of experiment. Hey, what feels good? What feels relaxing to me in that last hour? Ideally, that's not connected to technology, because most of us are like watching these TV shows on Netflix or Amazon Prime, and they're so good. And then it just rolls over right into the next one. And next thing you know, it's like way past your bedtime and you're like, oh my God, I got to get up and get to sleep. So really that last hour should be a focus on something that's going to be relaxing to you. And that, again, that's up for some people knit. I mean, it's like,
that's the problem too with like your device and social media is that infinite scroll. It's like you can't get to the end of it, So it's like you can just keep going. They did a test with people where they had them eat a bowl of soup, but the soup kept filling up from the bottom. And so they just kept eating because we like to accomplish things, right? But if you've got the infinite scroll, you can just keep going and going and going, and before you know it, you blew 45 minutes, and you missed your window of time. I'm curious, your thoughts on like, do you believe universally there's a particular time of night that's best, or is it really based on an individual? And do you go to sleep at the same time every night?
Yeah, I do go to sleep at the same time every night. And I don't think that there's something called chronotypes or chronobiology. So certain people are more evening people, like night owls. Certain people are more morning people. And then there's certain people somewhere in between. And there's a doctor, Dr. Michael Bruce. He wrote a really great book called The Power of When. He talks about, sort of how to meet your natural how to identify your chronotype and then what to do to sort of optimize it. So not everybody should go to bed at the same time. Really, it's if you're in tune with your natural rhythms, your body's going to signal to you, you're going to start to feel sleepy. And that's like, okay, well now my body's telling me, it's signaling to me, hey, it's time to go to sleep. So for me, I usually like at 10 o'clock that like turns on, I start to feel, my eyes start to get a little heavy. I start to feel, a little sleepy. And then I'm asleep by 10:15. Like literally it's like clockwork. Yeah. But some of our clients, they don't go to bed till 12. And, and that's like their natural, they're just late night owl people. And that works for them. And for them to try to go to bed at 10 actually isn't healthy, isn't natural, and actually disturbs their sleep.
Because then they're in bed and they're not sleeping. So it's like, go back to that advice you gave earlier where they're fighting it.
Exactly. You sleep's a result. Sleep happens. There's nothing you can do to actually control it, and there's nothing you can do to force it. It's like one of the best pieces of advice. It's the simplest thing, but most people totally just don't connect to this. Is you cannot force or control sleep. And trying to sleep actually is the last thing that you want to do. Because if you're trying to sleep, it's like it just doesn't work. It just activates your body more. You're doing things. It's you have to allow sleep to happen, and it's kind of like a mindset shift. But it starts with people realizing sleep happens.
I
There's
like
nothing
that.
really you can do to make it happen. And if you're trying to force it, that's the last thing you want to be doing.
Okay, so I'm curious about some of these like other things that you can do. So I'll kind of tell you about the things that I've started doing, and I'd love your opinion on them. So I started taking magnesium. I take a magnesium pill, and then I have magnesium lotion that I put on my feet, and then I do tape my mouth. I've been taping my mouth for like a
Nice.
year, and then I wear a red light mask, and like that's what I do. So I take my magnesium pill. I put my lotion on, I tape my mouth, and then I have like a 15-minute red light mask that I wear.
You are super biohacking right now. Yeah. So let's kind of, I love all of those things. The one thing I'm interested, the red light mask,
Yeah,
so depending on the frequency of the red light, it could be helpful or it might not be helpful. Um, so red light is amazing. And, like when we used to, for thousands of years, sit around fires and share stories and sort of, there is something to red light at night, but it's the frequency of light of that
interesting.
red light.
Okay.
So yeah. So depending, I don't, if that device is designed to help you with sleep, then I'm sure that they're aware of that. But then there's other red light devices that really you wouldn't want to use late at night because that actually would give you energy and kind of,
Oh,
yeah.
it's definitely not a sleep mask. My wife bought it as like one of those, like, oh, this is one of my tools to continue to be pretty forever, you know? And I just like kind of took it from her because I really liked it. But it's relaxing to me. Like, oftentimes I
Cool.
fall asleep with it on and I'll wake up and I'll like still have it on.
That's hilarious. Yeah, well, I mean, if you're falling asleep with it on, no problem, then I don't think there's anything to worry about. The magnesium, they're 100%. Magnesium is most people, I think the statistics, even up to 90% of people are deficient in magnesium. And magnesium is involved with thousands of enzymatic activities in the body. And it does help us relax and it can help improve the quality and depth of sleep. Depending on the type of magnesium and the supplement that you're using, dermally, like putting the magnesium on your feet, generally is the easiest and best way to absorb magnesium. But there are now magnesium supplements that they've made it easier to absorb, like nanoparticle magnesium, uh, which is great. But that's a great thing, regardless if you have sleep issues or not. Like just supplementing with magnesium for most people is a good idea. Like vitamin D and magnesium are like most people, if you got a blood test, it would come back like, yeah, you're deficient in vitamin D and you're deficient in magnesium. Like those are good things to supplement with.
Okay, well that's good to know. So I'm winning there. What about the mouth tape? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, this is I actually had a doctor. I interviewed a doctor who's a breath work master specialist who worked with James Nestor, who's the author of Breathe, where I think that kind of really that book really helped people understand how important it is to breathe through our noses versus our mouth.
Yeah,
And mouth taping. Did you
it
read the book?
well, yes, and what it made me think of is very much like why we sleep. It's one of those things where it's like you're already doing, so you better do it right. And it's like it's our body's filtration system, you know? And so it's like you should understand these things so that way you can use your body in the way it was designed to be the best version of ourselves.
For sure. And it increases nitrous oxide production. It's not only the filter, but it increases nitrous oxide production, which can help people that have an issue needing to use the restroom late at night. It can help you not have to wake up to use the restroom. There's so many reasons why nasal breathing throughout the night is better than mouth breathing, for sure. So mouth taping, 100%. If you're a mouth breather, mouth taping is something to experiment with, for sure. It makes a difference in your sleep quality, and just your health in general. So you get a golden star for all of the things that you're doing for me.
I love a good golden star. The thing is, I never even necessarily like all the stuff that I'm doing. It's not even like I ever struggled to sleep. It was just like, how could I be better at it? And I don't know that I was a mouth breather, but so I was at an event. It's actually almost exactly a year ago. And the creator of Hostage Tape was one of the speakers. And so he gave out tape and I was like, oh, this is awesome. I've been wanting to try it. You know, I'm curious. And that very first night, it was like I had a deeper sleep. Like I woke up feeling much more rested. And I was also in adverse where we were at like networking events. And so we were drinking and we are staying up late. So it's like all of those conditions were worse. But yet the restfulness that I had was through the roof. It was amazing. And so my wife and I both now have like, and now if I forget it, I don't like it. Like if I travel and I forget to bring it, I feel like I don't sleep as good.
Yeah, yeah, it's one of those things. I think eventually you can train your body eventually to just nasal breathe without tape.
Sure.
But for some people, it can take a while for that to happen. There's also things that you can do to strengthen your jaw and to strengthen the myoglossus, the muscle underneath your tongue. That's you like if somebody's there's an app called Snore Lab that kind of records your night, and you can kind of hear yourself if you're heavy breathing, if you're like gasping for air, or it's a really great app for people that snore to understand like, okay, you probably should get checked for sleep apnea. That's a good idea. But also just to kind of check in with, how heavy you're breathing.
Yeah.
So yeah, for sure, mouth tape is something for increasing sleep quality and depth. I think it's definitely worth exploring and experimenting with.
Do you use mouth tape?
I do.
You do?
Yeah, I do.
What brand do you use?
So honestly, I just use medical tape.
Oh,
so
you do?
I'm not using the hostage tape, or there's another one on Amazon. I forget the name of it that I really liked. But yeah, I just put a little piece of medical tape right here, and I don't do it every night. I think that I'll do it for a period of time, and then I'm always asleep before my wife, and I ask, like, hey, was my mouth open? And she's like, no, your mouth was. So I'm like, cool. Like, so I think you get to a certain point where your body just sort of remembers like, hey, it's better to breathe through your nose.
Yeah.
And then you kind of wean off. But then well,
I think
yeah,
for me, probably, right? Like it's a little bit of the placebo effect. By putting the tape on, my mind is just like, oh, we're going to get better sleep, whether I even need it or not at that point anyways, You mentioned something else. So Snore Lab was kind of in the direction I was going to ask for the next question of like what are your thoughts on all the data on sleep? So you've got like the Whoop bands and the Aura rings. Like what, have you tried that and monitored like the data of your sleep too?
Oh yeah. I've been tracking my sleep since for like 7 years using the Aura.
So Aura is the ring, right?
Yeah, Aura is the ring. The reason I like the Aura is because some of these other devices, I don't like to wear things on my wrist or on my chest, or and I've tested a lot of different devices, but for whatever reason, just putting a ring on is, for me, it's like non-invasive, and the Aura's done a great job of putting out consistent data. No device is 100% accurate. Even if you went to a sleep lab and they hooked you up with, all the electrodes, and it's not going to be 100% accurate.
Yeah.
So what you're looking for in the data is consistency. And that can tell you, hey, if I make this change, if I start supplementing with this, or if I'm mouth taping, or if I'm not eating, right before bed, or if I'm not drinking alcohol, you can start to notice these behavior changes, how they impact your sleep in the data, which is amazing because it can help motivate you to like, okay, like I'm going to keep doing that, because not only do I feel better, but I actually can see that I'm getting deeper sleep. My sleep efficiency's increased, which is time in bed asleep. It's kind of fun, but again, a lot of people become obsessed with the data. And if you're struggling with your sleep, I would suggest not measuring your sleep, to be honest, because what that does is it puts people in this like, yeah, you're like, oh, well, I need to try this and I need to try that, and none of these things I'm trying is working. And now you're like all anxious about it and you just sleep worse. But if you're someone who doesn't have sleep issues and is looking to increase your performance and the quality of your sleep, measuring your sleep, I mean, you can't master something you don't measure.
Yeah.
And so I think these tools are amazing for helping us master our sleep.
Yeah, the Aura ring has been on my bucket list because like I wear a ring anyways. And so kind of to your point, it's not invasive. I'm already going to have it on, and I'm fascinated by data. And so I feel like then it also turns it into a little bit of a game for me, which is great because then I'll want to figure out how I can maximize it. Uh,
100%.
you mentioned alcohol. What are your thoughts on alcohol and sleep?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not.
They don't go very well together.
They don't go what. Yeah, alcohol and caffeine. So alcohol. What alcohol does is, well, one, it dehydrates us. Which is really not what we want. But two, it also heats the body up. So that's why a lot of times people will wake up in the middle of the night, you have like a dry mouth, or it pulls you out of sleep. But the sleep studies sleep science shows that it gets in the way of a very important stage of sleep called REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep, which is where we're dreaming, which is important to, process the emotional traumas of the day. A lot happens during REM sleep, mentally, emotionally, and physically. And so alcohol really gets in the way of getting into the deeper stages of REM sleep specifically. So it's not ideal.
I think that was one of the things I remembered from Why We Sleep is he talked about the impacts of alcohol on your sleep and how if you have even like nominal amounts, it almost completely wipes out your ability to have REM sleep, which means you're not really getting rest.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate because, who doesn't like to have a nice cocktail or
Yeah.
A glass of wine? I think, something that I found interesting in my own biohacking experimentation, the type of alcohol, and also the quality of the alcohol for me makes a difference on how much or how little it impacts my sleep.
Yeah, I could see that. And for me too, I know if I do drink, I just need to make sure I have a lot of water before I go to bed so I'm not dehydrated.
That's and with electrolytes, ideally. Like most people are chronically dehydrated, even people that drink a lot of water. If you don't put electrolytes in your water, your body is not able to really utilize and absorb that water. You're just peeing all day. But if you actually put electrolytes in your water, believe it or not, you can drink a lot less and you'll feel more hydrated because you will be more hydrated.
Interesting.
So electrolytes are really important, like sodium, magnesium. There's a bunch of them. But companies like Element is a great company.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you have a go-to that you use?
Yeah, there's a company actually based in Utah, Trace Minerals. They have a supplement that I really like called 10,000 volts. And they also have, it's called Utah Sea Minerals. And what I found when I really understood like hydration, when I started to supplement with electrolytes, man, I used to drink so much. I would literally drink so much. I'd be peeing all day just because like water, stay hydrated. Yeah. I started using electrolytes, and this is a couple of years ago. I drink half as much and I feel more hydrated, and I just don't really use the restroom as like anywhere close to what I did before.
Fascinating. Yeah. Cause I drink like, about 3 of these a day. So that's like a pretty good amount of water, if not more. But yeah, I have to use the restroom all the time.
Yes. See if you can throw a little, even if you just take like sea salt, like a really good sea salt, like either a Himalayan sea salt, or in Utah we have amazing salt, right? So if you just take a pinch of salt and put it in your water, it makes a huge difference.
Interesting.
You'll probably be able to drink, I would say, one less of that whole thing.
Yeah.
And feel even more hydrated if you start putting a little bit of electrolytes in your water.
Wow. Yeah. I'm gonna have to look into that. Is there any other nutritional guidelines that you found for like that are super important for your sleep?
Caffeine. I mean, caffeine. So caffeine blocks adenosine. Adenosine is the neurochemical that builds up in our body that creates sleep pressure or the desire or hunger for sleep. And so that's why when we have a coffee or when we have a cappuccino or an energy drink or whatever it is, we have that where that energy comes from is it's blocking adenosine. And again, adenosine, we want adenosine to build up in our mind and body throughout the day. So really limiting your caffeine and the timing of your caffeine is a great hack for increasing the quality and depth of your sleep.
Yeah, I think he also talked about that in Why We Sleep, about like how long caffeine actually stays with you, So will you drink coffee in the morning or do you stay away from it?
Yeah, so and this is another, I'm going to give some like biohacks right now.
Yes.
So if you wait an hour after you wake up to drink your cup of coffee, that's the ideal amount of time. That's like the perfect time to have it. And the reason for this is because what pulls us out of sleep is the hormone cortisol. And when we drink caffeine, what happens is it's kind of like dumping gasoline on a fire. So cortisol is really high. It's a stress hormone. It's not all bad. We need that cortisol high in the morning. But if the first thing we do is we drink caffeine when that cortisol is really high, guess where the cortisol goes? Higher. And then it stays high. And our hormones are kind of fluctuating throughout the day. They're going up, they're going down, depending on our circadian clock. So if you can wait, if you can start your day with water with some electrolytes in it, wait an hour, and then have your cappuccino, your espresso, your coffee, that is like it'll make a big difference. The half-life of caffeine, depending on how fast you metabolize caffeine, can be anywhere between 6 to 8 hours, the half-life. So that means it's in your system for double that. So understanding what type of metabolizer you are, and you can find that out through taking a genetics test. Or you might just tune into your body. Like, I know I'm a super fast metabolizer of caffeine. Like, I have a little bit of caffeine and it's like, man, I am like buzzed. For some people, they're a little bit of a slower metabolizer of caffeine. But knowing, how fast you metabolize caffeine can also help with the timing of it.
Man, I'm like so jazzed right now. This is such a great podcast for me because now I'm just ready to like dial in my sleep routine again. Like I got all the easy stuff. It's easy to put lotion on. It's easy to put on a mask. It's easy to put tape on. It's harder to not eat 3 hours before and to get that. I know that when I read before sleep, like if that's the tool that I'm using as like I'm starting my sleep routine, I always have better sleep, definitively. And I don't stay up as late because I'm not as engaged in reading as I am on like an infinite scroll or a TV show, right? So that it's just starting my sleep time earlier.
Yeah, and the truth is there's no like one thing that'll make the difference in your sleep. It's a lot of small things. In 2019, I did a TEDx talk, and as part of that talk, I took a bunch of high performing entrepreneurs and I put them through sort of a test. And each week I had them test different things. Like one week it was a supplement. The next week it was like, hey, we're not going to eat 3 hours before bed. And everyone had an Oura ring. We were tracking all the data. And really I was hoping that like one thing would make like the biggest difference for this high performing group of people. But what I found was there wasn't one thing. Like certain things for certain people made a huge difference, and certain things for other people made a huge difference. So there's never really like the silver bullet or the one thing. It's always a bunch of little things, and then kind of figuring out what for you, your body, your lifestyle, your genetic makeup is the thing that can really pull the lever to really make your sleep quality that much better.
That's so funny. That was going to be my next question, was about your TED Talk. Because you did that, was that about 4 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's about 4 years ago.
The ROI of sleep, if you want to go check it out. How long is your talk?
I think it's about 15 minutes, I believe.
Cool. Well, I'll
Maybe
put that
less.
in the show notes for the listeners. If you want to get more of Devin's content and learn about the ROI of sleep, I'll throw that link in there. And then I'm also curious, I saw that you were rated a top 25 coach for health, like in the nation. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah. I mean, so there's over at this point, I think 200,000 health coaches and in the United States. And yeah, for the work I was doing, I was, named one of the top coaches, which is a real honor. And I think that's just a result of just helping people with a really painful problem, which is sleep. And we get amazing results for our clients. We have a 97% success rate.
Wow.
For people, that go through our program. And, even from the most extreme cases, like I said, like people that are on sleeping pills for decades, we're able to help them restore their natural ability to sleep in 8 weeks, a lot of times less, through these practices. And most of them aren't sleep. It's not really about sleep hygiene. A lot of it is psychology. It's how you're thinking about sleep. It's, it's really changing your thoughts, and then that leads to changing your behaviors. And then all of a sudden people are able to sleep, because sleep's the most natural thing in the world. You don't have to think about it.
So if someone is listening to this episode and they're like, oh man, I've never like had good sleep, and they want to work with you, what does that process look like? How should they go about it? And then what would they expect in those 8 weeks?
Yeah. So the first step would really be a consultation. So you can just go to our website, Sleep Science Academy, and book a consultation. But through those 8 weeks, I mean, here's the truth. There is a lot of things that people do unknowingly, one of them being staying in bed too long. There's a lot of other ones that keep people from sleeping, these underlying patterns. So over the 8 weeks, what we do is I have a team of coaches. We work with our clients one-on-one. We have a community of people, of all our clients, once a week. We do a group call where everyone can get on a call and hear from other people. Most of our clients come to us, they feel broken, like there's something physically wrong with them. They're alone and they feel like their situation is unique, or like they're this tough case because they've tried all these things, they've been to all these doctors, they're doing all the sleep hygiene, but they're still not able to sleep and they're on a sleeping medication. And through the 8 weeks and through our coaching and through our system, they quickly realize that they're not broken, they're not alone, and what they're experiencing is not unique. And the process is it's a journey. There is education. There's about, I would say, 2 hours of modules that people go through to understand
Oh,
these
wow.
practices. Yeah, and then they get the support, the one-on-one support and the group coaching support, and we measure and track everything with the Aura Ring to actually show them as they're making these psychological and behavioral changes, what a difference it actually makes in their sleep.
Man, that's awesome. What a rewarding thing to be in. And what's cool now is you have a new certification program, right? So now you're teaching people how to do what you do.
Yeah, I mean, I realized that kind of came out of realizing there's over 100 million Americans in just in the United States that have insomnia and have this issue and
Wow.
don't really, yeah, it's insane. And we're not going to reach 100 million people. Like that's just the truth. So the idea is, hey, why don't we give the tools and the techniques and the strategies? Let's train therapists, let's train doctors, let's train health coaches, yoga instructors. Let's train people to then bring these tools and this methodology, which we call dynamic sleep recalibrating, into their communities. Because again, we're not going to reach, most people have never heard about me. Most people have never heard about Sleep Science Academy. No matter how much marketing dollars or, what stage I get on, it's going to make a small dent. So the idea is, hey, if we can start to train people, give them these tools, give them the system that's proven, that works, it's based in science, then we're going to make a bigger impact. So I'm really, really excited about that.
Man, that sounds awesome. I think that, one of the problems that we run into in America is you go see a doctor or physician and you give them an ailment and then they subscribe a medication, right? Versus having those questions and being inquisitive and finding out like, how can we use the body to heal? And so I love that you guys are going to be and because I mean, how many things can be healed to sleep? I know for me, if I'm sick, all I really need to do is just sleep more. Like,
100%.
and if I do that, then whatever it is I'm dealing with enough sleep, I'm going to be fine.
100%. And that's like one of the cues that should, like, everyone, whenever you are feeling ill or sick, what does your body want? It wants sleep. And that's because that's when repair and healing takes place. It's during the night. And to be honest, we live in our healthcare is really sick care, and doctors are trained to prescribe. They don't have time to educate. They don't have time to,
they don't have 8 weeks.
No, they don't have 8 weeks. They don't have 2 hours to spend with a client. They don't have 8 weeks. They have maybe 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And people are begging their doctors, hey, just please fill this script again of Ambien or clonazepam or, all of these other drugs that most people are taking because they're not sleeping. And a lot of these drugs were only they're designed actually only to be used for a couple of weeks. And people are taking them for decades.
Oh yeah, I've got friends who've been using it for years.
Years. Yeah. And if you look at, not to scare people here, but if you look at the inserts and if you look at the long-term studies of what some of these medications create, the increased risk of dementia, Alzheimer's, I mean, it's pretty scary. Cancer, some of these drugs. And again, thank God we have drugs. And I think there's a time and a place for sleeping medication for sure. But if you rely on them, that's not the answer. It really isn't. You're just going to bounce from one to the next one. You're going to have to, a lot of them are habit forming. They're addictive. And so it really takes addressing the underlying root causes and how you're thinking and how you're behaving to then restore your ability to sleep. So the answer isn't in a pill. It's through really being honest with yourself and looking at, understanding your psychology and your physiology to allow your body to sleep.
So then another question I have too, we're in this transition right now. We're coming out of summer into fall. And so do you find your sleep schedule changes with the seasons, like with your circadian rhythm, and like, what do you do to prepare for that or adjust for it?
100%. Yeah, 100%. One of the things I thought was really fascinating is looking at my own sleep data over the last 7 years. I saw the fluctuation in during certain seasons, I get more sleep. So in the winter, I sleep more. In the summer, I sleep less. And that's directly correlated to the rising of the sun and the setting of the sun. In the winter, we have shorter days. In the summer, we have longer days. One of the most detrimental things to society is unfortunately daylight savings time. It's a killer.
Yeah.
When people lose an hour of sleep, if you look at the statistics, it's insane. The next day, the increased risk of heart attacks goes up, the car crashes go up. It's crazy. And for some reason, there are certain states, Hawaii, and I believe
Arizona doesn't participate.
Arizona. Yeah, I'm like, man, why can't we just get on board with like what makes sense and just pick a time and stick to the time? Because
Yeah.
it kills people, literally.
And that's fascinating. So, okay, my other one is naps. What are your thoughts on naps?
Yeah, I love naps. Naps for high performing people that don't have insomnia. Napping is one of the best strategies you possibly can have. Now, here's the truth. You either want to sleep for 20 minutes or a full sleep cycle. Most people don't have time in their day, especially if they're a busy person, to sleep 90 minutes, right? So 20 minutes, you don't want to really sleep more than 20 minutes because you're going to start to get into the deeper stages of the delta REM sleep. And then if you wake up in one of those stages of sleep, you're going to be more tired than when you went to sleep, and you're kind of going to be disoriented and foggy. So 20 minutes is that like perfect time for naps. And ideally, you don't want to nap too late in the day. So anything past like 3 p.m. in your time zone, ideally maybe even earlier, like around lunchtime, is like the perfect time to take a 20-minute siesta.
Yeah, when there was a time when I was trying to maximize all that stuff, and I was doing the getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning and doing all the stuff. I was religiously taking naps, and so I would set a timer on my phone for 27 minutes because it took me, a minute or two to like fall into it. And so then and there was some other, I think it was a sleep coach that told us the same thing. 20-ish minutes is perfect if you don't have time for a full nap. And so that's what I would do is I'd set a 27-minute timer, and that worked out. And it gave me it was awesome. It's better than coffee.
And it is better than coffee. And if you want to even supercharge it, I wouldn't recommend doing this all the time, but you can take like one espresso before you go to sleep. And you want to make sure if you're going to nap earlier in the day, and then the caffeine starts hitting you as soon as you start to wake up. I think Michael Bruce was talking about this.
I love it. Like supercharged. You get the nap and you come out of it just jacked, ready to go.
Yeah, you're jacked. You got your sleep. You got your caffeine is just hitting you. You don't want to. You totally could abuse that, but napping. What's really cool is they've actually done studies that people that nap live longer, and
that makes sense.
It makes
well. Think about the people in Europe, right? Like in those old Italian countries where they all live to be 100, and they shut down in the middle of the day and they all nap.
And same with Mexico.
Yeah.
I think some of the siesta culture is amazing. It's like, it makes perfect sense. And, it's so conducive for so many reasons. But in America, again, it's a hustle culture. It's go, go, go. It's, I don't have time because I just fill my day with so many things. It's unfortunate because, again, talking about rest, that's a form of rest, right? Napping is physical and mental and spiritual rest. And so if you can get a nap in, fantastic.
Yeah, the people in the office used to think I was slacking, but it's like, no, guys, I promise you, this 27 minutes is going to make me better throughout the day than if I was just to try and grind my way through it, And it's like, you're wasting 27 minutes in your day anyways on your phone or talking to a coworker. Like you have 27 minutes of waste in your day. You can replace it with sleep.
Yeah, and that's not a waste. It's
no, not at all.
The opposite of a waste. It's like one of the best things you possibly could do because you're just going to be more emotionally stable. You're going to be more focused. You're going to be more relaxed. You're going to make better decisions. You're going to have better energy. The ROI on a nap is pretty significant.
One other thought I just had. Do you have any apprehension to falling asleep to, like a sound machine, or if you've got a podcast you listen to, or like having a TV on, I'm sure is not good. But have you found that having those sounds can be helpful, or is that something you should stray away from?
Yeah, so I think it depends. Like if you live in a city where there's a lot of noise, like a lot of, sirens and a lot of noise that can disrupt sleep, having either brown noise or white noise. There's like brown noise, pink noise. There's all different colors of different frequencies of noise, and each color is correlated, impacts you in a different way. So white noise is like the most popular one for sleep. Brown noise and pink noise are some other frequency that also help. It's not ideal, but if you live in an environment what's really noisy and you have a hard time falling asleep, it can help. Listening to a podcast, listening to a sleep story or something like that. The only danger is you don't, if you're listening to something all night in your ears, it could affect your hearing. And you don't want to have to rely on something in order to sleep, because a lot of times people start doing things that are having trouble with sleep. Maybe listen to a sleep story or they're doing something, and then they're like, oh my God, if I don't have this story on or this thing, then I'm not going to sleep.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a bit dangerous.
Yeah, that makes sense. Kind of like the sleep tape. Because then if I don't have it, like, I'm not going to sleep as good. Oh man, well this was fascinating. I love it. I'm like super jazzed to get back on like that, and I'm going to order my Oura ring. I've been waiting forever. I just got to do it. So
I'll tell you this. There's also Oura has some competition. There's a ring that I tested called the Ultra Human ring, which is kind of cool. What's cool about that particular company is they also have a continuous glucose monitor. And so you can get the CGM and measure your blood glucose and also get your sleep data and all in one platform, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
But Aura's, we still use Oura at Sleep Science Academy. It's a great device, and it's a lot of fun to start to see that data and kind of start to investigate, hey, how do I continue to pull these levers to increase the quality and the depth and the efficiency? And I think it's fun.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love data. I think it sounds awesome. Well, is there anything, Devin, you want to leave our listeners with?
I just hope that this conversation added value to those that listened to it, and I hope that inspired you to really prioritize and protect sleep. If you're in that bucket, that large bucket of people that think sleep is a waste of time, I just challenge you to really focus on implementing some of the things that we talked about today, and really experience that it's actually not. And if you're in that small group of biohackers, hopefully you got some tips to try out. And if you're also in the group of people that are really struggling with their sleep, then check us out at Sleep Science Academy.
Okay, and I will put all of those links in the show notes. I'll put your TED Talk in there. And then the final question I have for you, Devin, is how do you define success?
I define success as doing something that you love that makes a difference in the world. So whatever that is, in small way or big way, I would say that if you're doing something that you love and it makes a difference in the world, you're successful. That's my definition.
Love it. All right, Devin. Well, thank you so much. I hope all of our listeners sleep better tonight with all these new tools that they just learned. I can't wait to watch your TED Talk. It was a blast talking to you. Thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. And hopefully if we do another round, I can get down and be in person with you.
Absolutely.